This is Magic and How to Fix It. This episode, No Rest for the Wicked. Read by Molly O'Donnell.
Here lay Eunice Montgomery, in a soft, warm bed of earth beneath a moss-covered gravestone. Green smoke merged with the heavy fog that was already set in the air. It swirled and whirled above her. A woman's voice penetrated the silence. "Your soul to me?" And as the spell left her lips, the ground shook. The dirt loosened, bones clattered, decades of exhaustion washed over her as Eunice Montgomery rose from her grave. Blood dripped onto a sarcophagus in the center of the graveyard from a woman holding a beating heart in her open palm. Her red lips curled into a smile. "Come, thrall. We have much to do." "Don't want to go," Eunice thought. She thought? How could she think when she was dead? She scratched her head, and it was unsatisfying. Smooth, hard bones were all that remained of her fingers, and her skull was partially covered in rotting flesh. She tried to speak, but only a gurgled groan released from her throat. Much to her dismay, her body rose to its feet. Every step was slow and off balance, and she was just a puppet on a string, ambling through the dirt of the graveyard. Bones cracked and groaned and ached from years of disuse. Her mind hesitated, but her feet did not. The horde paraded through the streets of Rotherhithe in the early morning sun. It was a terrible day to be an early riser. People scattered at the sight of them, shambling slowly behind a fearsome elven woman with the palest pink skin in a floor-length black velour dress. Long, sharp, blood-crusted nails corralled us along. We came to the top of a familiar building. It was lined with grey stone columns and had a matching stone staircase leading up to double-wide glass doors. With their current coordination levels, they would need all the extra space they could. Screams erupted beyond the glass doors as we hobbled through the doors in single file. Excuse me, ma'am, there's no undead in the building," a guard in chainmail with navy trim said, pointing to a large sign with a few simple depictions of creatures with bold red lines over them. Ever polite, Eunice tried to will her legs to turn, but it would take more than the will of an undead lady's maid to break blood magic. "I'm sure you can make an exception." She said gently as she continued on past him. "No exceptions!" He grabbed her shoulder and her body stiffened. The guard's eyes grew wide as the necromancer turned slowly towards him. A challenge written on her face. He clattered in his mail as she drew the very breath from him and held it there within her hands. Fragile wisp of life. He collapsed into a heap to be stepped over. God, this woman really knows how to make an entrance, Eunice thought. She reminded her of the lady she served in her own life, although Lady Francine never took quite so drastic measures. Where is that awful music coming from? The room quietened until you could hear a wand drop. You there, with the harp? The harpist froze. Eunice hadn't really noticed him in the dark corner of the sitting area. Are you responsible for this incessant music? She received a slow nod in response. curse upon you." She strutted towards him, her fingers outstretched. "A curse upon your children, a curse upon the food that you put in your bodies. May it rot inside you and wither you from within until you are nothing but a pile of dust. There is no joy in humanity because of your existence." She paused for dramatic effect. All the eyes in the bank were on them. Then she turned. "Would anyone like to volunteer their space in line?" she asked to a room full of gasps. Some customers took the hint and scrambled over the guard and out the doors. Others remained frozen in their spots with their eyes darting between the undead, the necromancer, and the frightened teller at the bank. "Move!" she commanded, and their legs finally kicked into gear. People scrambled about the room, eager to dodge the wrath of the necromancer and her horde of zombie muscle. They were likely relieved once outside in the fresh air away from their hanging stench of rotten flesh. Wide-eyed, trembling bank tellers suddenly found reasons to be busy elsewhere and slunk away one by one to the back rooms and the emergency exits. While the others got away, they descended on the poor soul on the centermost desk. Phantom strings forced their hands to hold the man in his now dirty navy uniform in place. "Not you, dear," she said in a blasé tone. We don't keep the money out here. There's nothing to take. It's all in the vaults. And I don't have access. I just started here last week," he rambled on at a rapid pace. "This is my first day on the floor, on my own, and I was so nervous I didn't even have breakfast." "Good thing you didn't, or they'd all be inspecting it by now." "I'm not here to rob you. I need assistance with my account. Now, do you wish to serve me? Or do you need to find someone more competent? How can I help you?" His knees seemed to collapse beneath him, judging by the way he was holding onto the desk between them. "My accounts have been frozen. I need them unfrozen." She leant over the desk towards him. "Now, can I have some space, please?" He looked between Eunice and her accomplice, holding his bile down well as he met their gooey green eyes. Eunice felt the grip on the man's shoulders loosen slightly. "Name?" "Salusa Quinren," she said, tapping her long nails on the wooden surface between them. He pulled out a fountain pen and a blank tome and wrote down the name. I'm sorry, there's nothing coming up." "Salusa with a double S," she clarified. He wrote again, this time spelling the name correctly, and the book lit up with letters and numbers. His eyes were frantic as he read through the pages. I'm not sure what to do with this. I need to get a manager. I'm sorry, it's my first day," he said with tears streaming down his cheeks. "I have been patient. I have waited 3 days for a resolution. Yesterday and the day before, I sat in this dingy, dark waiting room listening to the tune of dismay without so much as a slither of acknowledgement. This must be resolved today. Do you understand?" "Shall I go get him?" he sniffled. "No, dear. You rest your bones." Their eyes remained locked as the silence between them grew. "Yes, you should go and get him." He went on his way with an undead escort on each shoulder, then returned with a taller elf with slicked back hair. "What seems to be the problem, Mom?" he asked. "Do not make me recount the sordid tale again. Your colleague has been very helpful, and I'm quite sure he has filled you in already." "Let me take a look," he said with a snarl. "It looks like your business account was closed on account of suspicious activity. You will need to return with the paperwork tracing these funds to their origins." One of the undead stepped up and placed a stack of papers on the desk between them. His nose crinkled at the sight of them. He tentatively leafed through the slime-covered pile with a grimace on his face. "I can't. You will." She cupped his chin in her hands. "If you don't want to end up like him." She twisted his head towards the guard on the ground. The manager reluctantly wiped the goo from the papers with the palm of his hand. Then he lifted them towards the light and squinted. "That's more like it," Eunice thought. "I'm sorry, Mom, but this is insufficient. Your accounts will now be permanently closed and your funds seized by the Royal Treasury Guard." She leaned down now and spoke directly into the man's ear, the red stain on her lips accentuating every word. "I have listened to your devil's tune. I have danced this dance, and now it has come to this." The man thrashed as two corpses grabbed him on either side. "I have tried. I really tried to go the peaceful route, and where did that get me? To the back of the queue. And the music that filled me with the rage of 100 unsatisfied women, filled me with the rage of those who never knew true joy, filled me with the rage of every single injustice that has ever happened in Asteria." The bank teller fled, presumably leaving this as his first and last day on the job. Her monologue continued. "You summoned me here. You said that you would release the funds if I bring some paperwork. I bring it. Then you say you are seizing my funds. Where is my money? You think I would hand over my hard-earned money to you without so much as a peep? Are you the most stupid person who has ever lived? These corpses have more intelligence than you." "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to calm down or to step outside." He seemed to believe he still had control over the situation. Eunice would have laughed if she had been able. The risen corpses animated and began to circle him. She saw the panic in his eyes as she grumbled towards him and wrapped her hands around his neck. She willed her eyes to make a silent apology, but they remained stoic. The guards rushed in one by one, trembling swords pointed towards them.